she transitioned from a job to another. My jobs were pretty much in urban planning. That was kind of how I started applying my architecture background into the field. And it just so happened that through that role, there was a branding piece. There's a very popular neighborhood in Miami called Wynwood. And so I just kind of, my role was really to turn that, neighborhood that was an industrial neighborhood into a global arts destination. So there was kind of a branding component to that. And at the same time, Tia, my wife and business partner, was transitioning from, being in the hospitality, in a corporate hospitality environment where she led the marketing for several of the restaurants, to more of apparel, but also in marketing, helping a big brand, Free People, launch in Florida.
Welcome to A Founder's Life. I'm your host, Leo Gestetner. On this show, we dive into the real stories behind the highs and lows of entrepreneurship and how we pursue a more balanced and meaningful life along the way. This podcast is sponsored by Thankz, helping founders like us scale with reliable remote talent. Email founders@thankz.com, that's THANKZ.com, with the subject line, A Founder's Life, and you'll get $1,000 off your first month. Now, I'm excited today to be joined by Jose Nava. Jose, thanks for joining. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Leo. Thank you for having me. As you may know already, but to introduce to our audience, I'm actually a designer by trade. My background's in architecture, and day to day, I actually design identities, brand programs, etc. So I'm actually the founder of a branding and design agency called Levie Branding. We have 2 offices out of Miami and Atlanta. And our team kind of, operates actually around the globe. So we do have, team members that now work with us across Dubai, Berlin, and we work with clients, similarly on a global scale. So we do quite a bit of work, in North America, but more and more we're seeing, new projects that we're undertaking in Europe, in Latin America, and in other places. So yeah, I kind of landed in this role, kind of almost by accident. We make fun of it, of how we started the company, but there's a strong alignment there about kind of using design, for really to unlock impact and to really drive growth in a business context. And that's kind of what we try to do with our clients day in and day out.
Excellent. And talk to us a little bit about your journey that brought you to where you are today, and anything else you want to share about the business and the kind of clients that you're working with, although you've just shared quite a lot.
Yeah. So the path, the trajectory of how I ended up, here really as a co-founder of this company, and I run the business with my wife, was inevitably actually by kind of, it really comes together with our story, the way that we came together. So I met my wife, in a bar in Miami back in 2013. In walks in this beautiful girl into a bar of pretty much all guys. And, I immediately noticed her. I was talking to my friends and we all kind of wondered where she was from. And one of them nudged me actually, hey, you should actually, that's your wife, you should go talk to her. So I approached her just asking her where she was from. And that's kind of the beginning of it all because, from there, we immediately clicked. At first, she wasn't quite interested. She was trying to couple me with her friend. But there was, after I said a couple of things, I think I caught her attention. And we really clicked. We had an immediate chemistry. And one of the things that I loved about her was her entrepreneurial spirit. And so early on in the relationship, we knew we wanted to do something and to build something. And it was, it was sort of a complete accident because we were, I transitioned from one job to another. She transitioned from a job to another. My jobs were pretty much in urban planning. That was kind of how I started applying my architecture background into the field. And it just so happened that through that role, there was a branding piece. There's a very popular neighborhood in Miami called Wynwood. And so I just kind of, my role was really to turn that neighborhood that was an industrial neighborhood into a global arts destination. So there was kind of a branding component to that. And at the same time, Tia, my wife and business partner, was transitioning from, being in the hospitality, in a corporate hospitality environment where she led the marketing for several of the restaurants, to more of apparel, but also in marketing, helping a big brand, Free People, launch in Florida. And so we just got a call actually from, her old employer asking for some help with some marketing stuff. And that was kind of the entry point of how we're like, okay, this is something that we both kind of have a skill set on. She's more of the storyteller and the marketer, and I bring in more the design and the branding side of things. And so let's kind of put it together and let's start working with them. And then one thing led to another. And from there, it kind of turned into a business that we have today where we have, half a dozen people working in our team. And we actually do some really impactful work. And you asked about our clients as well. We're very fortunate to kind of serve clients across the spectrum from SMBs and mid-market all the way to large Fortune 100 and enterprise clients. So we very much work across projects very much in different sectors, so we do everything from real estate to CPG, sports, aviation. So some of our clients include, Brookfield Properties, one of the largest property owners in the world. Boeing, we work with them on several divisions, primarily in the private jet division, Boeing business jets. They're the ones that would serve things like, planes for heads of state, like the Air Force One and others. And then clients like F1 Miami, which we actually just had a great collaboration with this year, 2025, on bringing the race, really bringing every single touch point of the race to fruition for their paddock club experience. But then also we've worked with some super exciting, new beverage brands, new spirit brands, emerging CPG players in the wellness space, in the snack space. So it's been fun. And, at the same time, we're working with one of the largest, agro exporters from South America right now, really giving them a new brand platform for them to really grow on retail as a brand. This is a brand that their product is everywhere, but, all the people that sell it kind of put their brand there. So it was a very white label thing. So we want to now give their brand a platform and a voice. So anyway, that's kind of a little bit of what we do. And then of course, the great people that we're able to do the work with as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. And tell me a little bit about what family means to you.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. I think, family are the people that we get to, that we get to grow with in life. So I don't know. For me, it's, I think even though I'm, a very devoted parent and, I love my kids, I also work too much. Right. But from that standpoint, I think my kids to me are, I think there's just like I am trying to teach them things, they're teaching me things constantly. Right. And I think so do, people like my siblings. I actually have a chat with my family in Mexico, a WhatsApp chat. And there's maybe about, 30 people. And, a lot of times, the conversation kind of goes into some random places that, just generally you're not going to engage. But oftentimes you learn things, right? And so for me, family is kind of the people, these like spiritual beings that you kind of come into this world with, that then you kind of get to learn about whatever you're supposed to learn here in this life, right? And so I don't know that I guess that's my best answer without having put much thought into it. I think that is, and I think that the more that I think about it, the more that I feel that that's very aligned with my core,
Great answer. And how does health look for you?
Health, it's interesting. We had a conversation about this earlier, and your whole journey and, your protocol is super inspiring. I think it's such a great story, and I love that you lead with it, because I mean, to me, that's what health looks like, right? For me, on a personal level, I think, like you, it's all about kind of improving, doing something for yourself, kind of like each day, right? And treating your body as this incredible machine that it is, right? It has tremendous potential. You have to do some work to unlock it. I think the challenge that, people like me face, and really the challenge that I face is that I oftentimes can't find the time to give that to myself. And that's perhaps one of my biggest challenges. But for me, what health looks like from a protocol standpoint and from like a ritual standpoint, it's, finding movement, finding a way in which I can challenge myself physically, particularly in terms of like strength and stamina. Because of that, I love sprints. I don't do long distance running, unlike you. I did try it before. I got injured. I think partially, probably most likely because I didn't do it well. But in part, that's also a little bit too slow for my brain. Like I haven't been able to find myself in that zone, but I love sprinting. Sprinting is great. When I'm not sprinting, I love jump roping, specifically the weighted jump rope. I try to do that, 2, 3 times a week, and it's very challenging. It's a huge, full body workout. I really feel it kind of everywhere right after. And then, of course, for me, it's a combination of calisthenics and a weighted program, right? So whether that is, I love doing pull-ups, push-ups, squats, kind of like the basics, and then just adding some weight and then kind of focusing on some, supplemental, muscles, like my shoulders, my traps, so on and so forth. Just kind of I focus on different areas and then I try to hit everything each week, but you don't get to do everything every week as much as I like to. But 3 to 4 times a week of like being able to push myself on a cardiovascular level, push myself on a strength level and really feel that and then feel the after effects of that for days. And then of course try to align to also give myself, my body the protein that it needs, try to hit, 30 grams of protein each meal. And also I still, I know that maybe the fasting trend has faded a little bit. I still like to practice it. I like to go at least a few days a week where I don't eat anything till mid-afternoon, maybe dinner. And to me, it's kind of that combination, right? And the biggest thing about health is just how do you feel, right? Like I can tell when my body needs more of a push and I can tell when it needs me to rest, right? And the challenge is always when you need to push your body, but you feel like your time is committed elsewhere. That's kind of the fine line that you got to walk. And that at least I see in my life every single week. And it just repeats itself in different ways. If I am free work wise, but I'm traveling, well, then I'm traveling. And then there's those commitments, right? To family and young kids and kind of making sure that they are fed when they get up and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, though that's really what kind of where health fits right now in my life. And the challenges that I face with it.
Sounds like you've got a great balance in your health there of different aspects. I'm a little jealous. I think the jump rope especially, I like the sound of. I'm just too uncoordinated. I mean, it's funny because I am an athlete in many ways, but jump rope I find tough. I guess with practice I could do it, but it's definitely not something that comes naturally to me. But I think as a core workout, that's fantastic.
I mean, I will say with jump rope, it's interesting because I don't think that, I think that for a lot of people, it doesn't work. And I think primarily it's because a lot of the ropes in the market tend to be very light. So you don't feel a lot of weight with the majority of ropes. And I did try jump roping before. And like you, I felt like I wasn't very good at it and all that. And then I was actually gifted, I think it was a Christmas or something, kind of the weighted jump rope set. And that for me has been a game changer because you feel yourself getting better, right? So whenever I want to just push myself, like, body wise, I just go for the heavier one, but you can't really do anything like a double unders or any specific techniques with it other than just jumping, like, and kind of pushing yourself to jump for like a minute straight. But then they have another one that's still weighted. That's 1 pound, but it's, much less than the other one, the other one's like 3 pounds. The lighter one is 1 pound. And there, then you find yourself that you can actually do more because you have the practice of the heavier one. So it kind of, I would say it's a thing that it's worth checking out. And you might be surprised once you start trying it that you can get really good at it pretty fast, like after just doing it a couple of sessions, you really start to get the gist of it. And it's not long. You can, get a light workout in like 5 minutes, or you can do more of a fuller workout. Like sometimes I will do my strength training and just kind of in between, I'll do some jump roping. And that's a great way to kind of like break the sets, right? And just kind of get the blood moving and pumping,
Nice. And what do you like to do for fun?
I mean, that's a great question. I would say for fun, I love to hang out with my family. That's typically my number one. I do like to take walks in, where we relocated. I told you a little bit about how, we started our business in Miami. That was kind of both our office and our home were in Miami for the last almost about 20 years, roughly, that I've been in Miami. We started the business about a decade ago. So it's been kind of like I was in Miami for a while. met my wife, we started the business, but it was the last 10 years, just both working, living in Miami. And we wanted a change from just a subtropical climate. It's a dense city. If you want to get out to nature, you got either the ocean or you got the Everglades. And really, you just kind of want to enjoy the ocean. Like, the swampland is not that exciting, but that was one thing that we looked at when we were looking at moving and also opening an office somewhere else. And that's one thing that I love about Atlanta is the access to nature is amazing. And so for me, one of the funnest things that I love, and I did it this morning, I'll do it this afternoon, I do it every day, 2 to 3 times a day, is just walking outdoors, walking in nature. Kind of, for me, is almost meditative, right? And so, but at the same time, you get to really observe the ways of, whatever, like the eagles or the birds or the snakes and, even just like the river kind of flowing. And for me, that meditative thing is very grounding. So I can't say that it's the funnest thing, but I feel like it's necessary for me and for my well-being, right? And I would say other fun things, again, spending time with my family, going out, to like some great restaurant hospitality experiences, traveling. I mean, those are the things that I absolutely love. I love going to, Europe. Portugal actually is very high on my list, and you're in Porto. So, I hear amazing things. I am curious, obviously, to hear about your experience in Europe. And in Europe, what do you like to do for fun? I mean, I think it's interesting here in America. We just have different things. For me, it's like, okay, like today, that fun thing is going to be a workout. Today is going to be, just my time outdoor, or maybe it's going to be family time if it's on the weekend and we're going to go to a great restaurant or something like that. Right. Those things are kind of what checks my fun bucket. But I'm curious, and I know that this is an interview, but I love to hear from.
For me, it's certainly working out.
Yeah.
I find it meditative. I love the positive endorphins. Working out is addictive. It took me a long time to get to that place, but where I am now, working out is addictive. Going for a long run, weightlifting, whatever that looks like. For me, time with loved ones is fun in whatever form that takes. It might be a nice walk. I'll go for an early morning walk with my daughter, or it might be, whatever form that takes. Spending time with those that I care about is always fun for me. I'm actually pretty easygoing, so I find most things fun. I'm a glass half full kind of guy, and I enjoy life. Doesn't mean I don't work hard, but yeah, I enjoy most things I do.
Amazing. Yeah. And great energy to bring to the table. It's like seeing it glass half full. Yeah.
And for you, sounds like you have got a pretty good balance. So what I call a balanced life, which is that center line of balance. So not perfectly in balance, but what does a balanced life look like for you?
I think if every single day I'm able to, be there for my family, and specifically not just the collective, but the individuals, my daughter, my son, my wife, if I'm able to be there for them in an emotional way, kind of when they need me. And again, that's not going to be at all times, but at a moment that I feel like I can really have that connection with them. Number one, I can do something for myself, specifically, not just being outdoors, but pushing myself, working out, really being able to feel that satisfaction of, just again, the endorphins flowing, all that great stuff, like just feeling satisfaction, like, hey, I really did this for me, and hit my main goals at work. I'm not going to do everything, but if I can be there for my team, guide and lead my team, and at least move the needle on the things that are important in my business for that day, I think for me, that's a balanced life. It's very difficult some days to hit all three. And most of the time I average 2 out of 3, and those 2 out of 3 kind of change. But if I can hit 3 out of 3, that's a great, very balanced day. I'll go to sleep feeling extremely fulfilled. And most of the days I can be like, okay, well, you know what? Like, I did 2 out of 3 really good. That other third one could have done a little bit better,
Makes sense. And what has been a pivotal moment for you in your life?
There's been several. I would say perhaps the one that stands out the most was coming from Mexico and moving to America was really key. I'm in a very unique position from the standpoint that I was born in the States. I moved back to Mexico when I was 2. It was because of my dad's job that we're living here. And so we moved back. And so I was raised mostly in Mexico City. But like I mentioned before, I lived in a few other places in between. I lived in Colombia, which is a beautiful country, for 3 years. I lived in Canada for a year, and those experiences were really enlightening. But I think moving to America really was something that I always wanted to do. I always saw as as the land of opportunity in a way. And so coming here and establishing a life here was really critical. I think it was a huge pivotal moment in my life. And it just so happened to be at the time that I was kind of in the middle of high school. So from there, it was kind of there was a clear trajectory between there into the college years and then into kind of entering the workforce. And I didn't do it in a way that, for instance, that I knew that my dad or that other people expected out of me. And I think though that was a disappointment at first, it was a way that kind of allowed me to find that entrepreneurial spirit. And I do think that America is a land of opportunity, not just because of, what it stands for in many ways, but I think more importantly, because it's so friendly to the entrepreneur. And so to me, that was one of the most pivotal things. And then I would say probably at an even more foundational level, that's what allowed me to kind of embark on this journey. But at a more foundational level, like I covered before, was, definitely meeting my wife, because she, in a way, opened up my perspective about how to even go about it. Her dad was an entrepreneur. She was raised with an entrepreneurial mindset. She did very entrepreneurial things when she was in school. Like she had little shops, and she did, eBay, and she had a blog and all these things. For me, those things didn't quite come as natural. So just kind of getting that insight and that perspective in the entrepreneurial journey just kind of opened up a new world for me. And it was one of the things that has been one of the most defining as we built our life together, because it's unlocked huge opportunities. It's unlocked amazing, just a really great quality of life. And it's allowed us to kind of live life in our own terms, which is by far one of the things that I'm most grateful for each day. So yeah.
Perfect. And leading from that, what is one piece of advice you would give to an aspiring entrepreneur?
To an aspiring entrepreneur, I think that the biggest thing that I would say is develop a sense of vision for what you want in life. One thing that I found is that when you plan things, they rarely happen the way that you expect that they're going to happen. But when you have a sense of vision, you work towards that vision, and then you have a deeper sense of trust, whether that is faith or some sort of belief that the universe is working in your favor, or that God is working in your favor, whatever that is, whatever that looks like to each person. I think that combination of vision, like clear vision, supported by working towards that vision, kind of to the best of your ability, that one day in that, checking off the clear tasks that get you one step closer to that vision, and then putting that on a higher power. To me, that has been one of the most critical aspects to get where we're at. And it's also the driving force to get to the next place, right? Because we're never satisfied where we're at. We're always just looking ahead, right? So I have people reach out to me, and I have, people, college kids and, people that are at the beginning of their design career, and they're looking to connect. They're looking for advice. They may be looking for a job or an internship. And I think very often people don't approach things with a sense of vision and clarity. And when they have that, it's a total game changer. You can feel it and sense it pretty much in that moment. Having that approach to life, I think it's the clearest advantage that they can bring to the table.
Good advice. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us today. How can people find you?
They can find us on our website, leviebranding.com. That's LE, V as in Victor, IE, branding.com, or on Instagram, Levie Branding. LinkedIn, we're just Levie, Levie. And I'm pretty much on all platforms at Futurist Human. So that's how they can find us.
Well, thanks for listening to today's episode. And if you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, and leave a review.